this is Esther with Discover Your Origins. In this video, I'm going to be doing work on the Essary family, and I'm going to be focusing on one of the descendants of James Leroy Essary. I'm starting here just to give some background information on the Essary family. This is James Leroy, and he was born in 1779 in North Carolina and died in 1856 in Lawrence County, Tennessee. The Essary family is extraordinarily large. So if we were to go and look at James Leroy's father's profile, you'll see that there are a lot of children, and there's lots of notes on his account or his profile too. So James's father most likely was a James Thomas. Sometimes he's just called Thomas Essary. And we don't know who James Thomas's wife was, at least the first wife. That would have been the mother of James Leroy. But there's a second wife, Elizabeth McDaniel, and they have 14 children together. So there's a total of 19 children here, possibly. Some of these children don't have any supporting evidence, and so there's a lot of speculation on a couple of the children. There's also a lot of speculation on Elizabeth McDaniel, which I'll just leave here as a mystery in case you want to come and look at it. Lots of research notes on her as well. But you can see 19 children, and then a lot of these children had large families as well, and that includes James Leroy. James Leroy had 16 children, and we're still going through and trying to evaluate them and get evidence connected to each of the children and all of their descendants. So you can imagine if you were to do the math, and I don't know how you would do it because it's a number that is not stable, it's constantly changing. But how many descendants does James Thomas Essary have today? And how many descendants, if we were to just look at James Leroy, how many descendants does he have today? It's thousands. We're probably talking 20,000, 30,000. I don't know. It's a lot. My DNA matches through James Leroy Essary. I've got at least 175 DNA matches. He's one of my largest ancestry through-line groups. And so extraordinarily large family, thousands of descendants, and I only know of a fraction of them that have done DNA testing, at least that I've identified so far. So I'm fascinated by doing descendancy research, and I have done descendancy research for Anna Essary and Sarah Caroline Essary. Just for personal reasons, I picked those two women first, but now I'm going back and I'm starting at the top with the oldest son and going through and trying to identify all the descendants through Samson. And so I'm just going to skip ahead. I might do a diagram chart here to show you how I get to where I'm at on the Essary tree. So the person that we're going to spend some time today doing some research in real time is Sarah N Essary, and she's a descendant of Samson Essary. And like I said, this is a large family, so maybe I'll do a chart here showing where she falls in the family. We're starting here in family search, and it looks like there's been some work done on her already. The quality score is listed as high, and she was born in 1870 in Tuscaloosa and died in 1938 in Dora Walker, Alabama. She was married to George Washington Fields II, and so we might take a look at that. Looks like we've got George Washington III, and there's a few children here that look like they may need a little bit of work. Most likely they are deceased at this point because it's been over 110 years. So we'll take a look. Now I'm going to do a side-by-side. I like to do research like this where I have Ancestry and Family Search open in different windows. Where a lot has already been done in Family Search, I'll start in Ancestry and just go through the record hints there just to verify the stuff in Family Search is correct, and maybe we'll find some things that we didn't have before. So let's take a look. I'm just going to scan through. So whenever I run across a record hint that is a generic picture like this, I tend to ignore it. The person who added it to their tree probably has reasons, but for me it doesn't really provide much for me, so I usually just ignore those. All right, so I'm just going to scan through and just see if these records seem to match up with what we have in Family Search. So we're starting off with a marriage record for G.W. Fields and Sarah Essary. You can see here Essary, this record has her with just one S in her name. That's totally possible. You can see it spelled both ways. 5th of September, 1888 in Tuscaloosa. That definitely matches G.W. Fields. Okay. Then we've got the 1900 census, which will provide evidence for their children and a birth month and year. So let's see. 3rd of July, 1870. This says July 1871. So that's probably correct. And we've got Jenny as a child. Do we have a Jenny? Yes, we have a Jenny right here. No death information, so we'll need to see if we can figure that out. All right, 1910, so we've got some more children. 1920, some more children. She's got a lot of children, 11 children here, so it'll keep me busy for a while. Death record, 24th of January, 1938, buried in Sulphur Springs, so that seems to match up. 1930 census, Indiana death certificate, Sally Essary, child Rudolph Fields. Okay, is there a Rudolph here? There is. Okay, so we'll look at that later. Marriage record for Ruth. Let's see, do we have a Ruth? Oh, we do. Ruthie. Okay, so we've got a spouse for her, so that's good. Then we've got an obituary for Sally. Death seems to match children. Ike. That would be short for Isaac, probably. So there he is. Okay, so we're going to look at this one because if you don't have a subscription to newspapers.com, it's still worth looking at the obituary ones because Ancestry does give you a bit more information, even though you don't have access to the full article. So, for example, it will tell you the names of the other individuals. And so you can go ahead and attach this to your person. So, yeah, that matches up great. And then add in any of these other individuals. So we know this is Isaac here. We've got a George. I think that's George Washington Fields III, Jim Fields, Rudolph Fields, Jewel. Now that's going to be Jewel Fields. And Ruth Fields. Her married name is Jones. So you gained some information. Even though you didn't look at the record, you gained some things to help guide future research. So we'll go ahead and save that to the tree. All right. And then we got this newspaper article here. Sarah Fields in Newark, Arkansas, 1911. Hard to say for sure on this one if it's a match because it's a different area. So we might mark that as maybe. All right, so the rest of these record hints seem to be a match. And so I'm going to go through and attach them and then we'll talk about what's next. Okay, so I completed the first pass at looking at the record hints, and sometimes when that happens, Ancestry will serve up some more after you finish, so I've got some more record hints for us to look at. Okay, we've got a death index, 1880 census for Asaramicum. That is probably a mistake, so we'll just ignore that. 1940, Sally is living with Ralph Fields. Is there a Ralph Fields? I don't see a Ralph. I'm going to leave that hanging there. I need to do a little bit more looking to see about that one. We've got another newspaper story for Mrs. Sarah Fields. And then Confederate pension and service records. unlikely that her husband would have served in the Civil War. So probably not her. We probably need to look at that though. I think there is a Sarah that uh, Essary in the area that would have had a husband that served, but unlikely her. Oh yeah, W.C. Essary. I think I know who that is. So yeah, that's a different person. So no, that's not a match. All right, so that leaves me 3 more record hints to go through, but let's just see where we're at in comparing the two families. So I think I might have a couple duplicates here. Yeah, Ruth and Rudolph and Jack. I need to merge that with George Washington up here, probably. So I've got a little bit of cleanup work on my ancestry tree here, but looking over at Family Search, we've got some children here that all have death dates. These 3 daughters, Jane, Sarah, and Ruthie. And James Henry doesn't have a death date. Samuel Fields doesn't have a death date. So it feels like there's some work that could be done here. I don't know how much I'll show on camera because I'm going to start running into living people. This is definitely going to keep me busy for a few days as I go through all of these children. And if I find anything interesting, maybe I'll come back to George Washington Fields and Sarah N Essary. Otherwise, we'll move on to somebody else. So nothing too exciting in this one. It's kind of nice to have something maybe a little bit easier to look at for a minute. I hope this inspires you to build your tree with descendants. It definitely helps with doing DNA research, which I'm hoping to identify some more DNA descendants of the Essary family. How many of us are there out there? I think it's really interesting. I hope that was helpful. We'll see you next time.